farewell videos ever. But for a number of years, I never understood his obsession with monkeys, gorillas, or cavemen, or whatever those characters were in his video. And finally, I figured it out. It was on-the-job training for Jim. Everything has a purpose. He was preparing to become a news director for Tribune. And that's where our video picks up the story. Please take a look.
Back in the day when ties were fat, sideburns were long, and typewriters were, well, necessary, Jim Dish was banging out scripts in the WGN newsroom. Some of his best work was never seen by the general public, including this going-away spoof for John Drury and Bill Frink.
Serious journalism was the cornerstone of the 9 o'clock news team, although there was the occasional lapse to the happy talk days of eyewitness news.
No thanks to videos like that, Jim became producer of Night Beat and later the 10 o'clock news. He also produced documentaries, including the multi-award-winning When Johnny Comes Marching Home, at a time when support for the Vietnam vet was hard to find.
Comes the sad realization that our nation isn't fully prepared to accept its vets back into civilian life.
In addition to attacking apathy toward vets, Jim took on the funeral industry in The Price of Dignity, a documentary that was recognized for excellence by the International Film Festival. Jim rose through the ranks at WGN to assistant news director. He worked with news director Paul Davis to transition the 10 p.m. news to 9 in the evening, and they also launched the midday news. Jim was always hands-on, serving as executive producer of weather specials with meteorologist Tom Skilling.
You always had this uncanny ability to come up with the perfect title for them. I remember our tornado program. You entitled It Sounded Like a Freight Train. Perfect.
Well, it sounds like a train going by, but worse.
The lightning program, When Lightning Strikes. But 10 inches of partly sunny, that was one that really pissed me off.
Of course, Tom not only survived, he thrived. Jim also tackled sports by spoofing the Oscars with the 1989 Cubby Awards, a very creative way to make more money with Cubs highlights from a memorable year. Jim paid tribute to Bob Bell when he executive produced Bozo, the man behind the makeup.
Looking back now, this is about as fulfilling as anybody's job could be.
And he launched several special reports within newscasts, including Somebody's Child, a weekly adoption series credited with finding permanent homes for more than 140 children. After more than 25 years at WGN, Jim became director of news and programming for CLTV, Tribune Company's 24-hour regional news channel. It was the Wild West of synergy, a groundbreaking marriage of broadcast and print. Jim even created half-hour programs born out of print and web-based content, programs such as Good Eating and Metromix. Jim left CLTV in 2001, a year in which his news and programming departments won 6 Emmys, quite an accomplishment for a regional cable news operation. For the last 10 years, Jim has been director of the Archdiocese of Chicago's Office of Radio and Television. Jim oversees several hours of radio programming, produces both cable and broadcast TV programs, does field packages for both television and YouTube, and he even picks up a camera occasionally, especially if it gets him close to the Stanley Cup. Jim has shared his television knowledge with countless students over the years as part of Columbia College's adjunct faculty, a gig he picked up in the early 70s and continues to this day. A few years ago, Jim also began teaching master's level courses in news convergence at DePaul University. Jim loves to travel with Pat, his wife of 42 years. They have 4 married children, triplets plus 1, and 2 grandkids. Jim always enjoys a round of golf with his buddies and looks forward to challenging bike rides, especially with his kids. Perhaps a good closer for this profile is a story provided by Jim's WGN colleague Tony Nossi.
The Pope is in town. We're working around the clock, sometimes 15-hour days. What do you do to boost morale? Jim's idea was to wear a Pope hat. He made this contraption, the mitre, made us wear it, and now he works for the church.
Jim, congratulations, but I really didn't know that you made miters. Now we've been underpaying you because obviously you have other skills, and we'll have to talk about a few miters you might make for me or for some other bishops. Congratulations.
Congratulations to Jim Dish, 2012 Silver Circle honoree.
Get that out of here.
Ladies and gentlemen, please stand for my friend Jim Dish.
Oh, brother. In the interest of full disclosure, as I get this out, that last scene in the video was staged. I compared notes with Gloria last night just on speeches, and the main thing we talked about was what font to print the speeches in so we could read them. This is 16 bold, so with that said, let me start with a sincere thank you to the TV Academy for choosing me to be part of the Silver Circle. Cliche or not, this is a very humbling experience. Thanks to Thea Flom and Rebecca Cowing for throwing a great party. I apologize to them up front if after all their hard work, people go home and instead of telling their friends about the food, fun, and ambiance of the night, their main takeaway is that Tom Skilling has a potty mouth. I want to thank my family, friends, and coworkers, past and present, for being here this evening, especially my beautiful wife and best friend, Pat. I show up to many of these events with Pat. Then, because I'm a TV Academy board member, I'm off doing things, and Pat and I don't see much of each other until the evening is over. So tonight, this is a very special exception. Just preparing for this evening brings its rewards. In my case, while digging through countless cartons for old WGN tapes, I came across the elusive VHS of my kids and their friends attempting to do the Super Bowl shuffle on New Year's Eve 1985. I'll be selling DVDs in the lobby at the end of the evening. Producer Thea asked me to say something pithy tonight, so I did what any seasoned journalist would do. I Googled pithy. Brief, meaningful, substantive. Since I enjoy working on the TV Academy's Education Committee, I'll direct just 4 short suggestions to the students who were honored earlier this evening. Number 1, if you don't really like television, get out now. If you do love television, dive in head first. I've been blessed to work in jobs that I have truly enjoyed. Even pumping gas while I was in high school, the unforgettable discussions I had with patrons, like the driver who noticed I had accidentally emptied a can of motor oil into his radiator. From the friendships I made at WGN to all the extended live coverage we did at CLTV, from the very positive stories I get to do at the Archdiocese, and no, I'm not going to do a Tebow up here tonight, to getting reinvigorated every Thursday night at Columbia College. I have loved and continue to love what I do. Number 2, learn how to adapt to change. Social media, convergence, whatever it is, embrace it. I had a large staff at CLTV, but somebody was always leaving. I checked my deodorant, that wasn't it. Then I realized that people improve their skills quickly at an all-news operation and could move on to bigger stations in town and make more money. It was up to me to wish them well and learn how to hire faster. Adapt to change. Number 3, be creative, not just in program ideas, but in how you reach decisions, how you get things done in general. Early in my TV career, I was producing WGN's 10 p.m. news with Jack Taylor at the anchor desk, Harry Volkman on weather, and Jack Brickhouse on sports. We'd open with music, an off-camera announcer, and a wide shot of the news set. Unfortunately, Brickhouse didn't like walking down the hall from the newsroom just to be on set for 10 seconds. So more often than not, we'd open with just Taylor and Volkman. I didn't want to go toe-to-toe with Brick over this. I was the new guy. But one day I showed up at work, and my prayers were answered. The marketing department had created life-size cutouts of our anchor team and placed them in the lobby, so you know the rest. A true story. I cut Brickhouse off at the waist, plopped him in the sports chair, and we opened that evening's newscast with Taylor Volkman and a cardboard cutout of Jack Brickhouse. Talk about being PO'd. But Brick seldom missed an open after that. Okay, number 4, and this is the final thought for the evening. Never take yourself too seriously. We are not doctors trying to cure people. We are not police or firefighters trying to save lives. We are not teachers trying to shape lives. We are just doing television. Thanks again for your friendship. I appreciate it.
Moving along, Chicago has been blessed with an amazing supply of television talent, enough to fill a broadcast museum, in fact. And Bert Tilstrom was one of Chicago's brightest stars and most creative talents at the very beginning. In fact, in the video that you're about to hear, it is not a misstatement when it talks about Bert Tilstrom selling television in the 1930s. He was working for RCA Victor, going around the Midwest, building up anticipation for television in the 1930s. When Channel 7 went on as WBKB in 1941, Bert Tilstrom was part of that very first broadcast. In 1939, at the New York World's Fair, the first commercial broadcast ever, Bert Tilstrom was there in the RCA Pavilion introducing television. So that's how far this guy goes back. He was one of the most creative and brightest stars this city has ever seen. He was a pioneer who was a gentle, witty, and he ad-libbed his program on a daily basis. It ran for a decade, 5 days a week, 44 weeks a year. Kukla, Fran, and Ollie was, without question, part of the famed Chicago School of Broadcasting, coming out of Channel 5's Merchandise Mart studios under the stewardship of Jules Hervebeau. Let's take a look now at the great, late Bert Tilstrom.
Bert Tilstrom was born in Chicago in 1917, where he grew up giving puppet shows to neighborhood children. Thus began his career as a puppeteer.
I always loved theater, entertainment, movies. My mother and father loved music, and they loved performing. My mother played the piano very well. I have an older brother who is a very talented musician and performer too. All of us would get together and sing and play.
As a teenager in 1933, he attended the Century of Progress World's Fair in Chicago, where he met professional puppeteers who allowed him to watch the shows backstage. He was active in high school dramatics, and his ever-improving skills in puppetry brought him to the Chicago Park District's puppet theater supported by the Depression-era WPA. He designed and constructed his own puppets, including kukla, the Russian word for doll, a name given Burr's creation by a famous ballerina. By the age of 22, Burr was a professional puppeteer, entertaining at fairs, park fieldhouses, even nightclubs. He was part of RCA's pioneering introduction of television at the 1939 World's Fair in New York. For the run of the fair, Burr created more than 2,000 performances, entertaining people as they watched on TV sets in RCA's pavilion. During the war, he performed at the USO and at war bond rallies, where he first met radio songstress Fran Allison.
I first met Burr when he was doing a Bond show outside the Wrigley building. I was working in radio, and I was asked to make an appearance on this show. I was just entranced with Kukla, with his charm, his warmth.
In 1947, Burr premiered an hour-long children's show called Junior Jamboree on WBKB, starring Fran and his Kuklapolitan characters. In 1948, Burr was back with RCA, moving to WNBQ.
RCA Victor and its dealers present Bert Tilstrom, creator of Kukla, Ollie, and all the Kuklapolitan players, with Fran Allison in Kukla, Fran, and Ollie.
In January 1949, KFO became the first TV show broadcast over the NBC network via coaxial cable that linked the Midwest to the East Coast. The program was part of early television's Chicago School, which included Dave Garroway, Studs Terkel, Francis Horwich, Marlon Perkins, and Hugh Downs. The Kukla, Fran, and Ollie show were all ad-lib because, as Burr explained, his hands were pretty busy. How could he turn the pages of a script? His gentle and witty characters charmed fans everywhere.
Kukla was more nearly Burr than any of the other characters. Kukla was wise, he was kind, he was gentle, and his great love of music, of good theater, of good books, he was really the impresario of the Kuklapolitan Theater. Music became such an important part of the show. Many times a whole show was built around a particular piece of music that we wanted to use.
Old black magic had me in its spell. That old black magic that you weave so well.
Oh, there's never any mail for the mailman. Oh, there's never any mail for me.
3 little maids from school are we. Birds of the school so well may be.
Burr's creativity inspired new generations of artists.
Burr became a good friend of mine. He was a wonderful man. I admired him, I respected him, and I was always inspired by his taste, his wit, and his remarkable artistry.
I swore I'd never open up that trunk anymore.
After KFO's first 10-year run ended, Burr and the Kuklapolitans performed on Broadway, and at one point even covered the political conventions for the Today Show. And for nearly a decade, Burr and Fran also hosted the CBS Children's Film Festival. Back on NBC, Burr performed a series of hand ballets on the topical satire program that was The Week That Was, winning an Emmy for wordlessly sharing the wrenching story of two loved ones separated by the Berlin Wall. In the 1970s, Fran and the Kuklapolitans did a series on PBS, and Burr appeared once more on Broadway. During the early 1980s, he also performed annual holiday shows at the Goodman Theater in Chicago. Back at Channel 5, Fran reunited with Burr and his troupe once more for a series of holiday specials. A Christmas special, an Easter special, and a Halloween special. In a lifetime of creativity and history-making firsts, Bert Tilstrom won many awards, 16 alone in KFO's first year on the air. He won Peabody Awards, National Emmys, Grammy nominations, and the love and affection of audiences of all ages. This musical tribute was created for Burr's posthumous induction into the National Television Academy Hall of Fame.
There are lots of folks who feel indebted to the Kuklapolitans' pranks, and some stopped by to give them credit, and a heart full of heartfelt thanks.
Let's sing a song about Burr. Let's sing a song about Burr. Let voices raise to sing his praise. Hey, let's sing a song about Burr. Because dear Burr, we love you so.
This is Bert Tilstrom. I want to thank you on behalf of Kukla and Ollie and all the Kuklapolitan characters.
Here to accept the Pioneer Award on behalf of the Bert Tilstrom Copyright Trust are Bert Tilstrom's nieces, Bevan Tilstrom Laird and Susan Tilstrom Franklin, along with Mark Bolano, who is the head of the Kuklapolitan website. First, Bevan.
Thank you. On behalf of the remarkable Bert Tilstrom and representing his family and the Bert Tilstrom Copyright Trust, we accept this award tonight with great honor and gratitude for all who made this possible. Thank you.
Bevan asked me to say a few words on behalf of Bert's fans, and I can do that a little bit because when I first put up the Kuklapolitan website back in 1998, I immediately began to get tons of fan letters from people who still had an incredibly warm place in their heart for this show decades after it went off the air. And there's still, by the way, a very active fan base. Go online. There's a Yahoo group, there are Facebook pages, there are message boards, there are bloggers, a lot of people who actually volunteer a lot of their time to keep Burr's work alive. I recall the night that I met Burr, a friend took me to see him perform live at the Goodman Theater, and I was shocked at how not a children's show it was. It was very adult, very funny, and when the show was over, Burr came out to take a bow, and I turned to my friend and I said, "Where are all the other puppeteers?" And he said, no, he's the only puppeteer back there. And I thought, like the Muppets, they had a whole crew back there, right? There was just Burr, and I couldn't believe it because there were such distinct individual characters. Those characters are very real to people, and in fact, when I interviewed the show's cameraman, Bruce Berquist, who worked on the show in the 50s, I said to him, when you were in the studio, did you treat the Kuklapolitans as though they were real people? And he said, this blue-collar, down-to-earth, regular guy, right? He said, what do you mean? They were real. I mean, everybody really believed in them. I think everyone who has seen the show knows how real those characters are. I think it took a real genius to make you to believe that much. And all of us who love the show are very grateful to the Academy for recognizing that genius. So thank you very much.
Our next honoree is Jorge Barbosa, and presenting Jorge from WGBO Univision Chicago is the longtime colleague from WGBO, who is the Community Affairs Director, Luisa Echevarria.
Thank you very much. I'm Luisa Echevarria, and I'm the Community Relations Director for Univision Chicago, and Jorge Barbosa's colleague for the last 17 years. And no, he has not aged a day in all those years, and it's completely unfair. Jorge is much loved and admired, not only by his Univision colleagues, but by our entire community. Our large and loyal audience trusts and admires Jorge, and he works hard to earn and maintain that trust. I am standing in today for Dr. Juan Andrade, president of the U.S. Hispanic Leadership Institute, who really looked forward to introducing Jorge tonight, but had an unexpected change in his schedule. I asked Dr. Andrade, what do you want the audience of the Chicago Television Academy's Silver Circle Gala to know about Jorge? He thought for a moment and he said that he has a golden voice, and he really does. Everyone recognizes Jorge's beautiful and resonant voice. Jorge is a good listener, always kind, a truly devoted family man, and always elegant. In an increasingly casual world, Jorge remains impeccable. Our crew calls him Mr. B. So each afternoon through the halls of Univision Chicago, at promptly 4:50 p.m., you will always hear the same announcement, Mr. B to the studio. Jorge is one of a kind, muy querido, muy admirado por todos. Felicidades, Jorge, de todo tu equipo y de todo corazón por este gran y muy merecido honor. And now our creative services, and you thought I was going to continue to speak Spanish all night, right? No. And actually, I learned to speak, I came from Cuba when I was 9 years old in 1961, so do the math. And I learned to speak English, I swear, watching television, so it's only fitting that I wound up working in television. And now our creative services department prepared a wonderful video of Jorge's wonderful and long career.
WGBO Noticias Univision Chicago's Jorge Barbosa has been contributing his own unique brand of journalism to Chicago's television industry and Chicago's growing Latino community for over 20 years.
Esto y mucho más en solo minutos aquí en Noticias Univision Chicago.
But what few know is that Jorge originally studied architecture design and started out working for an engineering firm in downtown Chicago. But his real passion was not designing buildings, it was informing people. And it led Jorge to WCIU in Chicago, where he was a reporter and anchor for nearly 10 years. His compromise with the Hispanic population inspired him to rally the local Mexican community after the devastating earthquake in Mexico in 1985, working to provide much-needed relief to the stricken country while improving communication with relatives in the Chicago area. In October of 1994, Jorge joined the new WGBO as lead anchor for Noticias Univision Chicago. His passion for keeping Chicago viewers informed leads him to write his own news stories, and he stands always ready for the latest breaking news. Jorge Barbosa has experienced firsthand WGBO's technological growth that's led to the HD transition and beyond. And now Jorge brings his loyal audience the news from Noticias Univision Chicago's new state-of-the-art set and studio. His professional career has earned Jorge numerous awards, including the prestigious Emmy for on-camera performance. But to him, his most precious prize is his family. Patricia, to whom he's been married for 31 years, and his 18-year-old daughter, Candice. The Noticias Univision Chicago team is proud and always inspired by Jorge, his path, commitment, professionalism, devotion, and contribution to Chicago's television industry.
George, it's only 25 years, huh? You have done a tremendous job here in Chicago. You have become one of the most important faces on TV, and that must feel really, really great. Congratulations, and I hope you have many, many, many more years to come of successful TV career.
Jorge, congratulations for your award. Well deserved. Spending so many years in front of the camera delivering the news in Chicago is quite an accomplishment. It's an honor to work with you, and I wish you many more years.
When I came as an intern to Univision back in some years ago, he was one of the first ones that embraced me and welcomed me to this wonderful world of television that has become my career for the last 17 years. Felicidades por esos 25 años, por este reconocimiento tan especial y tan merecido, y sobre todo, de mucho profesionalismo.
First of all, congratulations, 25 years. Easy to say, but very difficult to accomplish, and you've done it with such great class. It's an honor for me to call you my friend and my co-worker. Muchas felicidades en esta tu noche y que sigan los éxitos.
Felicidades, mi amor.
Wow, thank you very much. Wow. I've never seen myself so much on TV. All right. Thank you very much. And of course, thank you very much, Luisa Echeverria, for your kind and very classy presentation. And by the way, congratulations. Some of you may not know, but she received a very prestigious award recently this week from the organization MALDIF, so you deserve it too, Luisa. So, thank you. Congratulations. And of course, now I would like to thank the TV Academy for this prestigious award. It is indeed a great honor. I would also like to take a little time to thank Univision Chicago's news director, Marisol Seda, and our general manager, Carlos San Jose, for their ongoing support as we face new challenges. But very importantly, I'm very grateful to our Chicago news audience for giving me the unique opportunity and privilege all these years to voice their concerns and do something about it when it came to the most important issues that affect the lives of Latinos in this country. Yes, let me tell you, it's been a great ride, very great ride. But looking back at more than 25 years in broadcasting, wow, I can't believe it. They went so fast. 25 years in TV broadcasting and all those great news stories that changed our lives. And remembering also those close calls, why not? Very close calls when I managed to dodge bullets in bad neighborhoods here in Chicago. When I had to get away from a military search in Mexico after I had infiltrated an explosion site I was investigating, of course, without their permission. But also remembering many, many memorable moments meeting world leaders, dignitaries, and celebrities. Sometimes moments so close that one in particular stayed in my mind forever. It is truly one of my all-time favorite anecdotes, and I'd like to share that with you. And well, what can I say is this particular one has to do with the Secret Service. Very timely, I think, don't you think? No, it's not what you're thinking. It's not what you think. It's slightly different, but it took place, let me tell you the story. It took place when President Ronald Reagan was in Chicago attending a VFW convention at the Hilton on Michigan Avenue. Well, or like he would say, well, after I had a rare chance to briefly chat with one of Reagan's best friends, Bob Hope, I continued to cover the press conference that the President and Nancy had for us in the special room at the Hilton. But what made that moment so memorable happened at the end of the Reagan press conference. While all the news crews were packing up with that never-ending curiosity of a journalist, and some of you kids will know that very soon, I decided that I wanted to see how close by myself I could get to the President without being noticed. Well, the President would walk, through that very predetermined maze of corridors to leave the hotel. Well, to my surprise, seconds after I decided to do so, I found myself walking right behind President Reagan without the Secret Service noticing such enormous intrusion. Well, I was behind him so close that I could almost pat the President on the shoulder. Yes, I was very aware that I faced the possibility, and you know that I would be wrestled to the ground when they noticed such infiltration. Well, they didn't. So I continued to walk through the corridors next to the President until one of the Secret Service agents very quietly eyed the other agents and whispered. He didn't know. He didn't want Mr. Reagan to realize what he had done. Who's this guy walking behind the President? While pointing at my person. So he finally caught up with me and asked, very quietly, of course, who are you? Well, you can only imagine his astonished face when I told him, I'm just a Chicago news anchor. Well, you can imagine the reaction. That's really a true story. I can never forget that one. Well, I would like to take now a brief moment to thank my talented daughter, Candace. Yes, who I'm very proud of. Now that she's starting college this year and then has been accepted to the Art Institute. Candace, thank you for being so understanding. You know that all these years, considering my late newscast, only allowed us to spend very brief moments on weekends. But thank you very much. Congratulations to you. Well, yes, it has been a very, very great ride. Very emotional. It's definitely a passion. Very demanding, but very, very emotional and rewarding career. But this special award tonight would not be possible. Let me tell you, would not be possible without the enormous and ongoing support from my wife, Patricia. Thank you, Pat, for all your patience and encouragement all these years. Thank you, Pat, for your love. And Han, where is he? Wherever I can help. This is our award, Pat. Thank you. Thank you very much. I love you. And a final note I have for you. You might have read in my bio, if you didn't have a chance, but in tonight's program, there is my bio that my professional, well, you saw it in the video, my professional career definitely started with architectural design. I wanted to be creative. But let me tell you, TV news broadcasting, I wouldn't change it for the world. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for the award. Thank you all. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Our up next is Steve Lasker, and to present Steve for the Silver Circle, please welcome longtime NBC5 Chicago cameraman, an Emmy Award winner, and a 2006 Silver Circle inductee, the legendary Charlie Boyle.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much. It's nice to be back in the Hall of Greatness. And just permit me a moment here. I'd like to introduce Steve's family. His lovely wife, Fran, daughters Stacy, Wendy, and the two sons, Scott and David. Scott is the one that works the overnight shift, and his films are seen on GN, NBC, ABC, weddings, wakes, and fires. Anyway, I hope they don't have the hook out there. Anyway, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. It's a pleasure and an honor to be here to honor my dear friend, Steve Lasker. We've been good friends for the last 38, 40 years. And it's so nice to be able to talk to the guys because we're about the same size. We can talk eye level. I don't have to look up to them. And also I'd like to introduce Roger Miller, and Ed Spray, and of course, my very, very dear friend, Scott Craig. Three of the most brilliant directors in the business. Anyway, short thing about Steve. He's the best. The man is fantastic. Every shot he takes is a gem. He's been doing it for a lot of years. And I just remember that one picture he took, this iconic picture of a fireman bringing this child out of this Lady of Angels fire. To have the presence of mind to forget about everything else but to do the job. It's pretty hard not to feel the emotion, but you have a job to do, and he's done it. He has gone from a still photographer to motion pictures and to video. And each one of them, he's become a master at it. In my opinion, my humble opinion, this man is one of the finest photojournalists in the business, and I'm honored to be his friend and part of his life. Steve, roll the tape, I guess that's the next thing to do here. Did I go over 30 seconds?
Steve Lasker always had a love for cameras, cigars, and hot cars. Steve spent the earlier days of his freelance career hitching rides on local fire rigs, shooting pictures that he would occasionally sell to insurance companies. Steve's professional news career was launched in May of 1950 when an oil truck crashed into a streetcar and exploded at 63rd and State. 34 people burned to death. Steve was the first news person on the scene.
And these two gentlemen came up to me and they said, "Who are you shooting for, kid?" I was only 19. And I said, "I'm freelance." He said, "Well, do you want to sell your pictures to us? We'll give you $100 for it." Well, back in 1950, that was a lot of money.
Those two guys who approached Steve were from WNBQ Channel 5, where he was hired to shoot still pictures for that station's newscasts. Steve had makeshift darkrooms at the Merchandise Mart studios as well as in his car. That meant quick turnaround compared to 16mm film that was processed off-site and couriered back to the station. In 1955, Steve was hired as a press photographer by the Chicago American newspaper, where he earned 37 awards for excellence in 15 years. His ability to capture historic and often tragic images was most evident in 1958, when he arrived at the Our Lady of the Angels school fire, in which 92 children and 3 nuns lost their lives.
When you see children, it hits you right in between the eyes. Your heart starts palpitating. How do you separate it? You can't. If you don't feel remorse over something terrible like that, something's wrong with you. And I learned at an early age that you've got to have feelings for what you're doing, but you got to do it whether you like it or not.
Steve covered it all for the Chicago American before returning to television, joining WBBM TV Channel 2 in 1970. He shot film and then tape during his 25-year run as a news and documentary cameraman. Steve partnered with documentary producer Scott Craig on several award-winning projects. The specials included the 1975 Emmy-winning Oscar Brown is Back in Town, featuring singer, poet, and activist Oscar Brown himself.
Brother, where are you? They said you came this way.
It was Steve's camera that introduced us to the homeless on Chicago's South Side in the 1985 documentary, No Place Like Home.
She dropped out of high school when she got pregnant the first time. Her oldest child is now 2. The baby is nearly 1.
Steve Lasker and Scott Craig even teamed up to recreate history. 8 White Sox players were accused of accepting bribes to throw the 1919 World Series. Lasker's camera brought viewers into the courtroom for the trial of shoeless Joe Jackson.
Left Lady Bach, please. Thank you.
Say it ain't so, Joe. Say it ain't so.
I'm afraid it is, son.
It was the only World Series in history to be replayed in the courtroom. The whole world and a judge and jury wanted to know how the best team in baseball threw the whole thing.
Steve is retired now. He has been married to Fran for 47 years, has 2 daughters, 2 sons, and a grandson. And yes, his sons are no strangers to cameras. Reflecting on capturing history in a camera